It's really quite simple. Bond is a bullet without a target. Let's give him one.
007 First Light by IO Interactive is one of the best games I've played in years. So obviously I was going to buy it day one. I pre-ordered it so that I could have it installed. I've been doing an entire series on different 007 games. I've talked about GoldenEye, Nightfire, Agent Under Fire, Everything or Nothing, and I've been waiting for the opportunity to play and talk about First Light for years. Now this is going to be a little bit different from my typical review videos because a lot of it's just going to be me on camera talking to you, but I wanted to get my thoughts out on this game sooner rather than later, and so I'll just have a little bit of spoiler-free footage on screen as I talk here and there to show off certain points, but most of it's just going to be me talking into the camera. If you guys want a full, 2-hour-long breakdown on the game, maybe I'll tackle that later down the line after I finish the other Bond games. Let me know if that's something you'd want to see in the comments, but for now, this is just a spoiler-free review of First Light. The game took me around 18 hours to complete in total, which is great for a game like this. It is a AAA, full-on, high-quality, well-made video game experience. It is mostly linear from start to finish with some incredible set pieces scattered throughout, incredible level design, great writing, great gameplay. Everything about it, in my opinion, is nearly flawless. Now, I had a few critiques on the writing here or there. There were a couple lines of dialogue that I thought could have been handled a little bit better. Bond says a few things that I would consider to be out of character, and I wouldn't really allow the justification that he's just younger for it. But given the state of writing in the video game industry as of late, this game may as well be Shakespeare. It's not the best writing I've ever seen in a video game, obviously, but it's probably some of the best writing I've seen in a recent video game release. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about some issues I have with Bond's characterization in the game later, but first, I just want to talk to you about whether or not I think you should play the game. So obviously, this is a $70 game if you buy it right now, and given the quality of the experience, I predict it's going to stay that way for quite some time. So should you buy it? Well, that depends. If you're really into linear, story-driven, third-person shooter experiences, then probably, yeah. If you're really into stealth games, like I am, then probably, yeah. It's got a lot of great shooting mechanics, very satisfying, very crunchy and punchy. It's got some incredible stealth mechanics. If you wanted to play it like a stealth game, you could probably get through reasonably 80% of this game without firing a shot. Some sections are going to demand firefights, obviously, but this game really lets you play your way through a lot of it. I was getting Metal Gear Solid vibes, I was getting Splinter Cell vibes. It has some immersive sim elements here and there that lets you dive into the world and interact with different things, which of course IO is known for with their Hitman series. There's entire arenas where I would find myself trying to stealth through it and then realize, actually, I could just take all these guys out with a fist fight, and then I would do that. Speaking of, the melee combat in this game is actually really satisfying. I'll be honest, I was expecting a kind of Arkham-style combat, but it's a little bit more in-depth than that. You can do a series of different things like grabbing enemies, throwing them into objects, throwing things at enemies during a melee fight, and there is a really smooth transitional availability between melee combat and firearm combat, which was clearly deliberate because you can throw your firearm in somebody's face and then charge them, grab them, and throw them into a wall or throw them off a cliff. It's some really incredible stuff that they pulled off here, especially with how smooth the animations are in between these different interactions. Each punch has really great sound design and animation that feels really impactful. It's just super satisfying. I would find myself in the middle of a stealth section and then just decide I wanted to have another melee fight because the environment was cool and I thought it'd be fun. And of course, the stealth gameplay is actually pretty deep, all things considered. Now, of course, they give you the whole see-through walls, lenses thing that most stealth games do these days, like the Arkham games would do. But I don't mind that at all. There's a pretty good in-game explanation for it with the Q lens. And speaking of Q, there's a lot of gadgets in this game. I tended to have 3 favorites that I liked to keep on me, but there's a decent variety to play with. We got things ranging from flashbang lighters, at least I think they were a lighter, to the laser watch. Of course, you've got to have the laser watch. You've got a little rocket pen, a little actual fountain pen that fires a rocket, which I really liked that. There's a pretty good plethora of different selectable gadgets, and you can pick which ones you want to bring with you, suited to your playstyle. Based on which gadgets you bring going with you into a mission, it could change what paths are available to you in that mission, because very much like the Hitman games, you're going to have a lot of areas that have a variety of different paths to explore and find things, and different ways to achieve your goals, which I thought was really cool and adds a lot to the replayability. I already am thinking about going back and replaying more of it on stream, just so I can like try to do things in different ways going forward. One minor criticism I do have about the way the game is laid out is that there just really isn't that much driving, and I think I understand why, given the size of the game and how AAA these driving sequences are, but I think there's really only one proper car chase sequence, and it's in the first act of the game. I don't think that's hugely problematic. It's not really a driving game, but the driving mechanics do feel really tight, like very satisfying to play. I lament that we didn't get like one more proper like driving chase scene, but I also open to the possibility that they're saving some of that for the sequel, which they're clearly going to do. But you're not going to get a lot of the driving in this game is what I'm telling you. Across these 18 hours, I think maybe 15 minutes of it total was driving, and a lot of that was just like driving forward slowly as a way to let the characters have dialogue interactions. Like there's a scene where you get to drive through London a little bit, and there's no action or high octane anything. You're literally just driving for a few minutes as dialogue happens. I don't mind this too much. I think if anything, it's decently appropriate for a Bond game, because this isn't like some of these other Sony titles. It is reasonable to have long stretches of dialogue and setup and build up, especially if the game is 18 hours. It's not like we're not getting 15 hours straight of just gameplay. But I do lament that there wasn't just a little bit more driving. And there's also some boat combat here and there, which again is super well designed and satisfying to play, but the boat combat is clunkier than the driving combat. I still appreciate that it's there, you know? So I would say that. In a lot of ways, the gameplay of First Light feels like an actualization of Everything or Nothing was trying to do. I know I said everything twice. But Everything or Nothing tried to be this cinematic, movie-like experience that had a little bit of everything that you would have seen in a typical Bond film. I mean, you had car chases, bike chases, melee combat, shooting combat, set pieces. First Light does all of that as well, and it does it to an insanely good degree. And so I think that a lot of the people I've seen saying this is the best 007 game we've ever gotten, I think I agree with that. Based on what I've played with a lot of the other Bond games on the channel, giving them these long, in-depth review videos, this one's better. I was smiling ear to ear through roughly 60 to 75% of my gameplay. Even the parts where I was dying and I was like struggling or having trouble, I recognized that was my fault. Like I needed to better learn the game's mechanics. I needed to understand what was going on. Even with areas where I was like trying to figure out what needed to be done, I felt like fulfilled whenever I figured it out. And I was like, oh, that's what you do. And then you move forward. But I would find myself getting a little frustrated because it does that modern game thing where the characters like tell you or like try to hint you what to do, where it's like, maybe I should check out that box over there. And I was like, shut up, please. I want to figure it out. Which leads me into, this is probably a good time to talk about my issues with Bond's characterization. When it comes to Bond, given how badly they could have screwed him up as a character, he was surprisingly well done. If we look at a lot of other like reboots and modern interpretations of other games and how badly they missed the mark, this is shockingly close. But I mean, again, that is with how low the bar has been set. The fact that Bond acts anything like Bond is shocking. Like, you would expect him to just be a different character entirely, but he's not. There is a lot of Bond's DNA in this character. That said, there are a couple of little issues that I think come from just modern game design in general here, and one of them is that Bond will not shut up. Like, he will not stop talking.
Good go. This should keep him busy. Should be able to use that crevasse to avoid being spotted. I'm backing out now, James. Need to find those captives.
Dude, shut the fuck up. That is such a problem with modern video games. I can't get into the immersive stealth atmosphere because he won't shut the fuck up. He is a good actor and he's delivering his lines well, but he's talking too much.
Focus M.
All throughout each level, he just doesn't stop talking. Like, I can't even hear myself think and enjoy the stealth gameplay because he won't stop talking. Now, Bond is a talker. Like, he likes to talk. I think he likes to hear himself talk in a lot of the movies and stories. But this is that times 50. It just doesn't stop. You will be in stealth sections, and he will be, like, whispering things to himself that have me thinking, well, if you actually said that at that volume in this scenario, you would have been heard just now. But the game just doesn't really acknowledge that he's saying all of this. And it's not like inner monologue, because when he speaks, like, based on the environment you're in, it'll either be a little echoey or a little bit more muffled. Like, he's actually talking. And he just does it constantly. He is describing his situations. And it's, you know, when he talks and he makes quips, love it. Fine with that. Love his little quips, love his one-liners. That's pure Bondian form. But he just describes his environment. He describes the things that are happening to him. And he constantly tries to, like, give the player tips and hints on what to do. And it borders insufferable. But given how fun the game is to actually play, you know, you can kind of overlook it. It is a result of modern game design. I think that's how they do it. It's kind of expected. They have these games and there's so much gameplay and they just want the main character to just talk constantly. But it got a little frustrating. And if that was the only issue with Bond's characterization, I could let it slide. But there is one more issue, which even leads into a little bit of what I would call ludonarrative dissonance. And that is that they have forgotten the necessity of James Bond's flaws. I'm not saying he is a flawless character in this game, but he is a little too heroic for his own good. So the original 007, the original James Bond, was conceptualized by Ian Fleming as an answer to kind of like war propaganda spy stories. Because Fleming would see these spy stories or these soldier stories and he'd be like, these characters are not realistic representations of what it feels like to be a soldier, to be in war. And he would know because he was a World War II veteran. He actually did serve. And so the purpose of Bond was to be an allegory, to be analogous to St. George the Dragon Slayer. Now, if you don't know who St. George is, a brief little description here is that St. George's sainthood is in spite of his own character, because he had moral failings and he was not a perfect man. He wasn't someone you would think of and be like, he is a saint. He is a good, symbol of what it means to be a Christian man. He wasn't those things. But when it came time to do the right thing, he didn't let his own flaws bring him down to think, I'm not the person who stands up for what's right. He stood up for what was right. When Fleming wrote Bond as an alcoholic womanizer, those weren't supposed to be like power fantasy, oh, he gets all the girls. It was supposed to be seen as like, this is not cool, this is not okay. These are flaws that are supposed to better represent how Bond is a flawed character who still fights against moral evils. That's why all of the Bond villains are reprehensibly megalomaniacal, because they're actual moral evils, whereas Bond is just a morally flawed good. And I would argue that the biggest testament of that is that in the novels, Bond doesn't really have a problem with killing people. Bond is a bit of a sociopath, and that's something most of the movies fail to really capture, is that Bond has that kind of borderline sociopathy inside of his head. He does not mind killing people. It doesn't really seem to affect him or bother him. That's why he can kill somebody and then make a quip about it.
They'll print anything these days.
It doesn't bother him. He doesn't care that much because he thinks to himself, well, I'm on the right side of this. This is for England. I'm killing for his or her majesty. We see the game like go back and forth between this, because you kill a lot of people in this game. And sometimes Bond acts like it's weighing heavy on his heart. Then other times he acts like it's not, and he'll make a quip about it. What's that? What are we doing here? So the game gives you this little license to kill notification, which doesn't make sense because you're not a 00 agent, but I get that it's a gameplay mechanic, and I'm actually glad it's there, because one of the criticisms I've seen is that telling a Bond origin is bad because you want to be Bond, you don't want to become Bond. But this game really does kind of have its cake and eat it too, because you get all of the things that you would get in a regular Bond experience. All of the tropes are here. Like, you are Bond. You do all of the Bond things Bond would do if he was Bond. It's just told in the form of an origin story. So you're not missing on anything here. But back to the license to kill thing. In the game, whenever you're put in a self-defense situation or someone's trying to kill you, you are now able to draw a weapon and kill them, right? That's when the game activates its firearm combat. And there are a couple of instances where the game shows Bond like having killed somebody and like feeling some type of way about it. And then there's other instances in the game where he kills people and he makes jokes about it. He doesn't seem to care. Now, what I would usually assume is that they're trying to show how he's becoming numb to the act of taking a human life, which is what I thought was going on. And okay, that's fine. I don't mind that. I don't mind kind of seeing his heart kind of get hardened throughout the game and going through these experiences and having these traumas dealt to him. But again, without spoiling very much, in the last mission, there's like some Batman dialogue where one of his allies, I'll say, kills somebody and he says, "Why did you do that? You didn't have to do that." And they respond, "Well, you know, they had to go." And Bond said, "Well, that's not my way. That's not how I do things." As if he knocks people out, but he doesn't kill them. That's just not true. That's not even true in the game. At no point in the game do we ever see or get the idea that Bond has some kind of problem with killing people or killing bad guys, because he does it a bunch throughout the entire game. And a lot of times like makes jokes about it right after doing it. So it's just a really strange thing that they added in there, and it plays into part of Bond's characterization in this game, which is that he is a fundamentally good person, that he has a fundamental good in him. In fact, Bond doesn't really even get a character arc in this game. He has what I would call an anti-character arc, which I don't really have that big of a problem with, because there's a different character who goes through a big arc, and I think that was done really well. That was done beautifully. But Bond, his character arc is basically being told not to change, to stay who he is, to stay Bond, which I don't really have a problem with. I think that's probably a good way to handle a character like Bond, a character who has to be so stoic and hardened. If you put a character like that through an arc, eventually you're going to fundamentally change the essence of who that character is. This is a character of myth, which is why he has prevailed this long in popular media and popular culture, because myth characters have a kind of essence that needs to maintain. There's other things that you can grow with them, but my point of that is Bond should not be a fundamentally good character. He's supposed to be a fundamentally flawed character that still stands up for good when it matters. A character who does the hard thing because it will result in the ultimate good. But not that he is fundamentally good from the baseline. And this game really appears to be struggling with whether or not it wants Bond to kind of have a distaste for killing if it's not needed, or if Bond is a character who doesn't really mind killing if that's what he thinks it takes. So that ended up being one of my main criticisms for the game, is that it seemed to be struggling with how it wanted to portray its Bond. And I have a little bit of a theory that maybe they did some rewrites over the course of the game's development, and maybe they were originally going to try to portray him as a little bit more of a good boy, and then they changed things here and there, and it feels like there's some remnants of two different versions of Bond that they were trying to tell. And I think that the one who they were trying to make more of a heroic, like hero style character may be the result of like some leftovers, because there's less of that. There's not a lot of that. That's why it feels so out of place when we get that. But for the most part, throughout the game, what you're getting is a Bond who wants to do the right thing, but also has problems in himself that makes it easy for him to do those things no matter the cost. I'm pretty sure that doesn't spoil anything, so you should still be good to play it. But that was my largest issue with the game, was just that it didn't seem like it knew how it wanted to portray Bond, and it's like fighting against itself to show him as flawed, but also as a fundamental good hero, and it's really struggling with that. I mean, we still get his classic womanizer status. They didn't like water that down or anything. It's still there. He's still like going after women. He's still acting like that. We see him drinking, so those two fundamental like flaws are still present in the game. So it's really like nitpicky stuff from me, being someone who reads the Bond books, has watched the movies, plays the games. So those are just my subjective opinions on Bond's portrayal in the game. But other than that, I actually really liked the plot of the game a lot. For a game that's trying to tell an origin story about Bond coming into the 00 program and earning his 00 number, I really, really think it did a good job of also just being a Bond story, right? Like, all of the tropes that you would want to see in a good Bond game are going to be here. We got the big villain, we got the classic henchman, we have boss battles, we have car sections, we have evil villain lair hideout. We have snowy terrains, desert terrains. We have mysteries to solve. We've got plot twists. We've got characters thinking one thing and then being proven wrong. We've got Bond getting captured. We've got Bond being attempted to be killed in asinine, over-the-top ways. Like, you would be hard-pressed to find a fundamental good Bond trope that's not in this game. It is delivering you a quintessential Bond story. It just happens to be under the context of Bond isn't a 00 yet, but he still works for MI6. So, like, it may as well be the same thing. It's kind of a side note, if anything, that he's not called a 00 agent yet. But I mean, he does all of the same things you would expect him to do as a 00 agent. Like, there's some stuff I can't talk about regarding story decisions, because again, I don't want to spoil it. I just want you to play the game. But I loved the narrative. I thought it was fantastic. I would put this up there in the top 5 Bond stories any day, gladly. This may be a little overhyped from me, just because I had such a good time and I enjoyed the game so much. Easily top 5 Bond experiences. Movies, books alike. Like, First Light is trying to do proper justice by the Bond IP, and I believe that. I had a fantastic time with it. I thought it was really fun to play. The music, handled by a band or a group called The Flight, I think made up of 2 composers, is phenomenal. It is just beautiful. It's some of the best music that I've heard in a Bond game, and I've done nothing but gush over the other soundtracks of the other games I've talked about for the most part anyway. So, as always, quality music. And even David Arnold worked on the main theme alongside Lana Del Rey, who David Arnold, of course, did the music for Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, Casino Royale. Like, he is a Bond music veteran. Probably my favorite Bond composer in general, so I was really glad to see him involved here. The theme by Lana Del Rey is great. The title sequence is great. This is probably game of the year for me. Like, I've never been a big GTA guy, so I'm not really worried about liking GTA 6 all that much. Like, this game is probably my game of the year. I loved it. I highly recommend playing it. If you're not big on stealth games or like melee combat games, maybe hold off and wait until a sale, because this is very much a game that leans more so into stealth gameplay and melee combat than anything else. Like, there's a lot of shooting, but compared to stealth and melee, a lot less so. But it's got so much going on. There's so many different things to do in this game that, yeah, I would definitely recommend it. So, that's my overall thoughts on 007 First Light. I loved it, but if you've played it already, or if you're currently playing it, why don't you drop a comment and let me know how you're liking it. Do you agree with my takes on this? Do you think maybe I've been a little bit too gushy over it? Should I have been more critical on something or the other? What do you guys think about it? Drop a comment and let me know. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you're still here and you consider yourself to be a creative person, let me sell something to you. I've recently launched my own community on Skool.com. Now, it is a paid inner circle, and it is specifically for like creative people and like project people. So if you're not like into some kind of creative thing like music, writing fiction, YouTube, or like indie game development or something like that, this isn't for you. You can click off and not worry about it. But if you're into creative projects like that, then let me pitch this to you. What we have is called Creation Nexus. I've got 7 people in there total already. We're still building it out. We're still bringing in new people. And what we do is we get together and we show off the work that we've been doing on our different projects. So obviously I do a lot of stuff. I do music, I do YouTube, I do fiction writing, I do all kinds of stuff. I'm into indie game design to a degree. Like, I've worked on several indie games in varying capacities. But so far we've got 3 different indie game devs who are sharing models, environments, artwork, things that they're doing for their indie game. We've got a composer, we've got 2 other YouTubers, and we're always like giving feedback, iron sharpening iron, tossing out ideas, throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks with one another. It's all without ego. We don't take things personally. We just talk about what we're working on. We try to get some feedback, try to get some advice. Is this working? What do you guys think about that? And it's been super beneficial even for me, and I'm the one who runs it. But I get feedback from some of the guys in there, and some of the decisions I've even made regarding the channel have been coming from this. I've been building it out for the last 5 or 6 months. There are 9 full lessons there that talk about my blueprint guide for how I get a project from start to finish. You can watch those if you're looking to gain some wisdom, some insight on how to get a project from the starting point into the concept point into the execution point. So you can check that out. And I'm going to make another video talking about this whole thing more in depth, a little bit more down the line, probably sometime next month, where I break down everything about it. So this is really just more of a pre-ad, just to kind of throw it out there, let people know about it. But there is going to be a full breakdown video about the course coming to the channel pretty soon, so you guys can look out for that one. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. watching. Let me know what you think about First Light. Click that link in the description to check out the Creation Nexus Inner Circle community on Skool.com. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more Bond videos, along with a couple other unique videos I've been doing some work on that I can't wait to share with you guys next month. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.